Somebody say I don't want the trees.
Okay.
Okay,
We're gonna relight our Public Works meeting candle.
I know you're busy, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for holding it.
You're welcome. Okay, we're back in session from our brief little recess, and we're going to go to 23, 22 on some of yours. Discussion regarding updates to ordinance section 7.05 and 7.051 pertaining to refuse and recycling collection. And I will turn it over to Dave Webking, and I think you brought along Mr. Hoppy.
Works in our sanitation division. Come on,
Sure, come on.
Derek. So Derek Hoppy and Sarah Diebitz have been assisting with the container issue. So right now we're looking at revising or making adjustments to the current refuse ordinance 7.05 as well as the recycling ordinance 7.051. The recycling ordinance, a lot of that revisions, and I'll have that for you to review, is dealing with the type of materials for single stream. Where previously, many years ago, we had it was separated, so we had to make that adjustment in the ordinance. For refuse, the ordinance there, we had previous discussions where there was interest to mandate city garbage containers for the residential units within the city limits. Currently, right now, we have about 17,000 to 18,000 living units. Of those, it was requested, could we plot those on a map? And that's what you see here on this map where Derek was working with our GIS individuals in IT. Yes. And you can see there that it is populated, where you see those red dots.
Thank you.
Are those residential units that don't have a city container where they were not purchased. So they are using a 32 gallon container. We hope that are, per ordinance, steel containers with a lid. However, as well as we are aware, if you go through several areas throughout the city, there's containers purchased from Menards, Kmart, Home Depot, what have you. So what our goal is from the previous discussions is to have a consistent container throughout the city. Now, we've had a variety of styles over the years of city containers that have been provided to the patrons to be purchased, and they varied in cost. And about approximately a month ago, based on our current purchase, that's how we would price those containers. So according to this map, one thing is this map shows that it's varied throughout the whole city of individuals that don't have a city container. So I would not have expected that. So it is, throughout the city. Also, on the lower key here indicates how many individuals or living units don't have a city container that they purchase from the city. And that's approximately 900?
About 857 households that are not utilizing a container that would have a normal plastic container or something they purchased from a hardware store, something like that.
So with that, I know there was, a request, information there, and I guess we, Department of Public Works, just need direction if we wanted to continue to address that in the ordinance to mandate containers, whether it be 96 gallon or 64 gallon, to improve aesthetically, but also we do have a rodent issue, as many other cities do, but we're trying to avoid the containers where the lids can be flopped open or removed, or the wind takes them, where rodents can climb up and get in these containers. So the third is the safety of the drivers, the truck drivers that are servicing these containers. Thankfully, to the council, yourselves, we have cart tippers now that can adjust to all the different sizes of city containers that we provided throughout the years, and the patrons have purchased those. So we're trying to eliminate the lifting, the twisting. So that's another reason for
Mr. Chair,
this.
so that's always been for a long time my intentions, Dave. You know, I think we have the ordinance in place now. I mean, right? You know,
It's going to be drafted,
Right.
Mr. Vitale, to mandate, if it's approved, if the direction is here from
we
this
should have
committee.
that already a long time ago, because really, I can't see in the winter time when you have the crew go through the alleys and even go through on 57 between Lincoln and Rita Drive, the Parkway. There is some property owners have no lids on it, so it rains or it freezes, you know. Well, that container, I mean, is full of ice. So the workers physically have to lift it up, and to me, I mean, it could cause some injuries. You know, to me, that's the bottom line. To me, it should be a mandatory, really, for everyone, every resident that gets a city service. I believe you should be able to get a card for the recycling and the refuse just as well. Really, I mean, to me, I mean, we've been lingering this for too long. You know.
Chairman Rowe?
Yes, Alderman Grisham.
Dave, thank you so much for putting that together, both of you, actually. And just to speak what you're saying, Alderman Vitale, I know that you brought this forward a long time ago,
Yes.
well before I was an alderwoman, and I asked this to be revisited. I think Dave did a great explanation as to one of the reasons, actually multiple reasons, we'd look at mandating this, and I would definitely be in favor of it. I do have a question, though, relative just to the logistics. What if a patron does not use a city cart once it's mandated? Will we be delivering these to them and putting this to their tax bills? How will that go?
So the normal, I envision that once it's in the ordinance, we would have a period of time, a grace period, so to speak, of a time frame that the council would elect to give the patrons. And then after that time frame, then, you know, during that time, we would try to counsel that person or family. And then after that, we would, again, communicate through a notice. And through the second notice, that opportunity was not taken, then we would supply a city-owned container for that living unit.
Okay, thank you. And I have one follow-up question. How do you feel this will impact the efficiencies of the crews to have a cohesive mandated cart throughout the city?
So I believe it will be more efficient. It will be quicker to an extent that when you go from residential unit to residential unit, a couple years ago we had in the ordinance through our bulk policy where we would take whatever was in the supplied container or containers of a living unit, but also up to 4 cubic yards on the outside of those containers. Currently, in December of last year, we revised that. We said instead of 4 cubic yards, we will allow 1 cubic yard to be stored. Let's say a full mattress or what have you that's approximately 1 cubic yard, and then also the container. So with that, the crews are somewhat, you know, they're overflowing, especially with the 20 to 32 gallon. They don't suffice given the type of households in the majority of the living units that we see. So we would hopefully have a safer type route. People are staying more on the job. They're not being injured. So you would have that continuity.
Thank you.
Dave, if I may, all these red diamonds represent people that don't have garbage carts. They got a galvanized can or something that they're bringing their garbage out to.
Correct.
When we delivered the new garbage carts 4 or 5 years ago, and it was taken out of the water utility, right? The funding.
Good
Or
question.
It came from someone. Nobody paid for them.
That was the recycling containers.
Oh, okay.
So the city provides the recycling containers through the utility. Good question.
Okay.
So any living units from 1 unit to 4 units. By state law, we recycle, and we did provide those containers. You know, going to the refuse collection, you know, we do not provide those type
Okay.
of containers,
My
but we
mistake.
offer them for purchase.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Ranky.
basically, we had, I thought, a very thorough discussion earlier about this some time ago. And from what I understand, I thought the committee basically reached a consensus that we would probably start this program the first of the year. Am I not correct?
I think
on
that's
that?
where we were
I
looking
think
at
that
it, if the
Right.
council approves.
You're right, Lowell.
to give people an opportunity to kind of learn more about the program and acclimate themselves to getting ready for the program. Now, we had raised, well, I shouldn't say, the carts basically were more costly, we'll put it that way, that we've ordered. Would we still give our people somewhat of a discount, or would we want to price them the same as what we've paid?
So per our fee schedule that was approved approximately a month ago, the latest shipment, the fees were to be adjusted. So as we ordered new containers, those fees would be adjusted accordingly. So currently, right now, they're $58 for a 96-gallon refuse container. If we ordered 2,000 containers maybe next week, it might be up to $62. Or it may be down to $45. So it's kind of fluctuating with the type of materials and how the markets are playing right now. So
Would it be dependent on how many carts you ordered, or wouldn't that have any bearing?
we've ordered the max, a full semi-load. Derek, how many do you know offhand?
We have, off the order we received, we have 75 carts left.
Okay.
So
And the
it's-
total order was approximately, was it a
That was
2,000?
the first shipment. So I think it's as we request again, they will bring out more carts. So that's where we are at.
We would still have the same kind of program, though. We would
Correct.
take on
Yeah,
more than the 4 units, right?
for recycling, correct. Yep. For refuse, and that's kind of my second, I guess, request of information to discuss, is there's interest of supplying services for mixed properties with commercial and residential. So what are we doing now? So currently within this ordinance, we are picking up commercial properties that have a detached 1-unit residential living unit. It has to be detached. We are providing that service for refuse and recycling. Part of the discussion, hopefully I'll have direction from the committee, is regarding, do we want to add? There's been interest to add commercial or mixed properties that have attached living units, 1 family, 2 family, 3 family, 4 families, in a variety of these commercial properties. So on the attached document that passed out, thank you to Sarah Devitz and Derek Hoppy here. They kind of issued some statistics here where if we wanted to, at least at a very minimum, right now we are collecting 1 family to 3 family residential properties for garbage. In comparison, for recycling, we are collecting 1 to 4 living units per state law. So if we wanted to raise that from 1 to 3 to 1 to 4, we are looking at additional 920 units, residential units, that we would have to add to our routes. After that consideration, the second line there indicates mixed-use commercial properties having a single living unit. That would add 98 more properties to the servicing of our routes mixed-use commercial properties, 2 living units that are joined at the property. There is 73 properties, which would result into additional 146 living units. Mixed units of 3 living units would add 120 units, so on and so forth. So number one is, do we want to raise, there's been interest to raise the living units from 1 to 3 to 4 residential living properties for regular refuse collection. The second item is there's interest to add commercial or mixed residential units. Now, obviously, during the budget, we are minimizing staff, equipment, but I just wanted, I guess, direction from the council.
Chairman Rowe?
Alderman Grisham, go ahead.
Dave, thanks again for getting these, all of you, for getting the numbers together. Just to kind of give everybody a background, I raised the question about commercial properties as I'm an operator of a business, and there's 3 residential units in our building. The owner of the property actually isn't paying for a dumpster because it's just not affordable. And what we find more often than not for businesses like ours, neighbors are using it. People come by and drop a couch in it, and then we're stuck paying the bill to dispose of it. So it kind of seems like it's unreasonable for commercial businesses to be penalized because of that. But we have 3 residences in our building, for example, and my salon, and we basically put it in regular garbage cans, and the landlord comes and takes it to the dump. So that was all just to save money, and the fact, like I said, 3 units, we're not filling that up. But I had to also think of, what if it's a restaurant? What if it's, someone who may use a lot more of that dumpster compared to just a few cans? So I appreciate you putting together the numbers, and I just really wanted your insight as to how much this would add, not only financially to the city, but we're talking how many properties of commercial properties like ours that are impacted.
So we're looking at a total 1,300 residential properties that would be added if we went with additional 4-family residential units, as well as the mixed commercial residential 1, 2, 3 units. So that would be approximately 1,300.
But you did
units.
state that recycling is picking up to 4. So
Up to
if we
4,
wanted it to
but
be
not
cohesive.
commercial, but not commercial.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Spassky.
So adding all these up together, I come up with $30,383. Is that the cost that it would be impacting the city to adding all those? Is that what that is?
For the refuse containers, we're looking at approximately, this would be the living units would be responsible, would be approximately $80,000 that we would have to have those supplied to the residential units. Recycling carts, because we are going to potentially provide recycling for the commercial living units, residential living units, 1 to 3. That's approximately 430 living units. So the city would be providing those at free for approximately $25,000, given the rates that we've purchased the recycling containers a few months ago.
Mayor Devine.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, I know you shifted a little bit towards commercial, but I just wanted to mention that I'm planning to address this somewhat in the budget, so I can look you in, based on the data you're getting, and talk to you beforehand and see how we could work together on approaching it. But I just wanted to, if it shares or saves any time for the committee, this
Fantastic,
is
thank
something
you.
partly just in the issue of trying to control the rodent population as well. So.
Right. And that was one of my biggest concerns as well. So at this juncture, thank you so much for adding that to our conversation.
Alderman Road?
Alderman Vitale.
Yeah, I have my question is that 20-some years ago, the reason to cut back on to provide services for the 3-family and above to me at that time was a major saving cost for the city, really. We talk about not $100,000. We talk about, at that time, probably was close to $900 to $1 million. So now if we will revive this again, and we have a budgetary issue here, so we don't really have the total, if we start talking about 3 family and above, we don't have really the fact that we need more additional help. That's the bottom line. I mean, we need more people to staff this additional work. I mean, you can do it with the same crew, 20-some people that we have right now. We have to increase that. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I feel that it could be a cost factors which will affect this budget, really. It would, in many ways. It's not as easy that we can express this. It's not as easy, you know, that, and I think Public Works has always been trying to do a good work in that regard, you know, for over 20 years. I mean, it's not the questions that at that time it was not done for a great reason.
Chairman Rowe,
Go ahead, Alderman Mike.
would you like to go ahead? Okay, you go ahead.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
She's allowing me to go.
Oh, well, that's mighty kind of her.
You bet. Do I understand this correctly? Then we would derive revenue from, if we made this change?
We would have to invoice for the collection of these services for the commercial properties, that's my understanding, which they are not currently paying at this
Charge
time
them.
for that service.
Yes. And that was basically what I was getting.
Yeah, yep,
We wouldn't be providing free.
correct. Yeah, it would be at some, you know, rate. On the first handout there, we have approximate estimated revenue. So for mixed commercial, residential, single living unit, we're looking at for each living unit for about $2,200 that they would have to pay for those added services. For 2 living units, $3,200, so on and so forth.
And to piggyback upon Alderman Vitale, do you foresee that we would need additional staff if we went this route?
Well, currently, right now for recycling, we have 2 routes, and they're full with the amount of tonnage with their routes. They get done, you know, probably around 2:30, 3 o'clock. If it's a 125, a holiday, it's after that, so it's past the 8 hours. For refuse, we have 5 routes, incentive. So they're usually done at about 1:30-ish. And then that allows us to take those vehicles and do any type of maintenance on them. So we're encouraging them to work faster. They service both, each route services between 800 to 900 living units per day.
This took a great deal of thought, and I'm sure that you spent a lot of time on this also. And I want to thank you because
Yep.
it really is a good program that you've put together.
Oh, this is in before for me. This is, and again, I appreciate Derek Hoppy and Sanitation, Sarah Devitz that provided a lot of these figures. So
Well, thank you.
You bet.
Both.
Do we pass around the pros cons one too, or?
Yeah.
Rebecca Rill, please.
I just wanted to mention what Mayor Devine talked about was providing the garbage carts through the budget. The second portion of this discussion, I think, is a different thing than what we've been looking at. I haven't been privy to the information that you have before you, so I'm not sure all the costing that's in there, but it sounds like you have a lot of information about the amount of locations that we would have to go to if you would change this, but I'm not sure about the analysis of the wear and tear on the vehicles, the amount of staff that we might need to workers' comp issues, different things like that. So if there is a desire to move forward on that, I think we would need to do a little more digging and looking at the information that you have before you. I just wanted to mention that, but I'm not sure what it is because
We should address these two separately, 705 and 7051? Is that what I just...
I think Rebecca is indicating we had the container issue, and then the issue that was brought before regarding the mixed service.
adding service.
Yeah.
Chairman Rout, if I may.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just for clarity, we had discussion on this point, and this is what Dave was asked to do, and the DPW to come back with these figures, these numbers, just based on the discussion that we had, and it is a twofold. I kind of added the commercial aspect of it and how we're handling pickup with the leg of companies not picking up garbage from the dumpsters right now, and so they're two separate issues. If Mayor Devine is talking about looking at the budget and adding this as something where we're providing these carts into next year, I think it runs right into the timeline that we were talking about if we would implement it through council and say, we're going to do this January 1. So this, just to be clear, very separate items. I just wanted the numbers to see where we would be at so we could have that further discussion if it made sense to add commercial properties to the routes or for families. Right now, what I really was concerned about was the 2,000 patrons that do not have garbage carts, having it not only cohesive, more efficiencies for those that are on route right now, the fact that we do have a rodent problem, and the containers that people are using are not helping the situation, and overall safety. So Dave really hit the point to why we were looking at mandating the carts versus adding the commercial properties per se. So.
Alvin Road. I want to flap my mouth for a few minutes.
I didn't recognize you yet, Vince. Go ahead.
The cart issue is one of them. But the rest of it, 20-some years ago, which Alderman Lysak, he was Alderman back then, and I think was a beneficial decision made at that time by the mayors, the council, and Public Works just as well, to make the drastic change. And it was a saving cost. I mean, it was a major saving cost. And then we went with the garbage, instead of the hourly, they were working on an incentive program, which has been working so well. So years ago, we had more than 40, 45 people on the route to pick up garbage. And that's a gospel truth. Today, we have maybe a little over 20 that take care of the entirety of our community. And that's fact. That's what we have. So we do need to increase the fleet. That's the bottom line. Is nothing comes cheap today. Today, it's a serious business that the city is facing, or any other community. So that's why we have to really digest all this. And I agree that it should be budgetary figures, what would be, not just to say we're going to go ahead and do it. To me, I would like to be cautious about this issue, really. To me, it's a major issue. The old fathers, what they've done, they did a good deed for this community. So I don't want to just blew out of the way, just to start something that the city right now is facing over $1.5 million budgetary issues, and we're going to just blow something that's going to affect every taxpayer in this community. That's all I have, Alderman Root.
You're fine.
Just to follow it up, what direction are we taking here? We had, this was to be a discussion, but also Dave was looking for direction as far as mandating the carts.
And I said there's two different issues here, the 705 and 7051.
Correct.
So should we just do the 705, give you direction on that? That's the carts. The cart issue alone.
Mm-hmm.
And
then the mix.
And actually, what I would like to do is I'd like to make a motion to hold this item altogether,
I'll second
if we
it.
can.
I'll second it.
Just so that we can reference it a little bit
let
more,
the
being they're
dust
two
settle.
separate.
Yep.
I think it got a little confusing tonight. Thank you for putting this data together. I think we have a good idea where we can go from here. It's not going to change in the next month, so thank you for doing that. And
Mr. Chair,
Yes. Oh. Hi, a new guy.
if I could,
Alderman Weigel.
so I'm one of those mixed-use building owners. I think adding mixed-use building, residential, I live above my business, have for 40 years. I think that's a mistake. I think that you're gonna have a hard time for a business owners, tempted businesses look good, garbage will get picked up, I'm gonna start throwing my commercial garbage in my residential dumpster. I think anybody that owns bigger apartment buildings, I don't know when we say it's 3s, 4s, or 5s, they're running a business, okay? Having garbage service, commercial garbage service for your business is a cost of doing business. That's just something business owners should be expected to pay for, okay? So I don't think we should be considering picking up garbage for apartment buildings, expanding that. We've been having these hard budget discussions all the time, and the idea of expanding services now, I think, would be irresponsible. And as far as your overflowing, there's locks on my dumpsters and my recyclables, okay? My dumpsters are locked because I do find other people's garbage in my stuff. But you can put locks on garbage cans, okay? I've been doing this because I'm out of contract, I'm looking at changing vendors, so I know more about garbage pricing than I want to right now, and I know more about the options that I want to right now. But I don't think the city should start talking about expanding service in the garbage side. This is right. There was a time when I first started my business in 1980, the city picked up my commercial garbage for free. Flower pot dumpsters, you guys remember those?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm gonna ask my question I ask all the time, what do our neighbors do? What does Wauwatosa do? What does Greenfield do? Whose garbage do they pick up? I'm gonna bet that most of the mixed-use properties and all of the apartments above a certain number, we have the classic, my family came over as immigrants, they bought a duplex. They lived in the duplex, and the family lived in the upper. So that was owner occupied. But they all turn into land, absentee landlords. And those people are running businesses in our city, and having their garbage hauled away should be just a cost that we expect. It goes in their P&L. It's part of what you do. I would not be an advocate for expanding services.
Mr. Chair, if I just to kind of piggyback what you were saying, before we even knew as a council that we had a budgetary issue is when this discussion first took place. So first and foremost, I agree, I would not be looking at expanding city services for commercial properties at this point. The whole point of this 1A-B was to have an understanding as a committee if we were so choosing to proceed with something like that. So it was for informational purposes. I do, however, support that we would mandate the 2,000 additional carts so everybody in the city has them. And that was the primary focus of what I would like to do tonight. I did say we could hold this item because I would like to hear what Mayor Devine has to say regarding what's going to be looked at into the budget, because it's a larger problem than just finding the efficiencies. We do have a rodent problem that we've discussed, and we need to combat on that issue as well. So I just wanted to be clear so you guys know that. I'm not looking to spend taxpayers' money foolishly, especially in a budgetary crisis that we're having right now.
I don't know why I have to open my mouth again, but I would.
So,
Most of us are.
how about that?
Alderman Vitale.
I want to go back about 40 years ago.
40 now. We were going 20 before.
Talk about the rodents problems, Years ago, we started the ash boxes, so the city workers, the guys were on the route, so they open up the doors, and before you know it was rats coming out of there, and on and on. So, the fact is that we had this problem now, and that's many residential people, they don't follow through with being smart or just reckless about, first of all, not having the proper garbage container or recyclable container, which the city have been provided already for quite a while. So And then the second part is they throw stuff in the backyard, and that's why it's causing rodents to grow. I mean, that's the biggest problems. It's not the big containers in the apartment that cause the rodents. It's not. It's a regular residential properties. That's why we get the gripe and complaints by neighbors. It's not from 4 or 5 unit apartments. They all come from residential, duplexes, single families. That's where they come from. And many of them, I believe, they don't have the proper containers. And I've been saying that for a long time. You know, have the proper container. That's what is causing the problem with rat issue. Was across the street from the alley. These young couples, they had 3 aluminum containers. Myself at night, I stood by my garbage cans. So when I looked, about 4 raccoons, they had a good time. They pull the covers out, and I was looking at them. They didn't care about me at all, really. They didn't care. So the same thing with rats. So those containers have been causing in our community a biggest problem. You know, today times, I mean, we got to change. I mean, people have the proper container. Like Greenfield, I know they have a contractor, but everybody's got the proper containers. Why we wait this long? I mean, Dave, I've been talking to you for a long time about it. We got to make that change, and I think alleviates much of the problems, you know, that we're facing with. I'm done, Alderman.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
We better hurry up and have a motion to adjourn then.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
There were 4 seconds, okay? Be noted in the notes here. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.